Hi guys, in this video I go over the two different forms of division. One is floating point division and then integer division. So let's start out with a simple floating point division. Let's say I have a variable f1 and I initialize this to 3, and I have float f2 and I initialize this one to 6. Now if I want to divide f1 divided by 2, and let's say I have a result, I divide f1 divided by 2. What will be stored in the result? So I output it here. This one, floating point division. So floating point division simply means we have at least one floating point value and we perform division. Now if we execute this, we get 0.5. So 3 divided by 6 is 0.5. This is very natural. That's probably what we expect. Now it is different when we have integers. Let's say I have integer I1 and I take here 3 and I have integer I2 and this one is 6. So it's again 3 and 6, but both are integers. Now I take the integer result. So I name this one result 2 and I divide I1 divided by I2. So 3 divided by 6. And I take the same output statement. Instead of putting f here, I put I to show that this one was using integers. And I run this. Oh, this one should be result 2. So I want to output this variable, not the same one from the floating point division. So let's run this. And here we get 0. So this one is different than what is expected. The reason for this is this performs integer division. So integer division means that it divides, but it truncates and cuts out everything after the decimal point. So it is 0.5, but then it just drops the decimal point and everything after. It doesn't do any rounding, doesn't do anything, so it simply cuts it out. And then that's the reason why we get 0. Now we could change something. Let's say we have A, and let's say use 3 and 6 again, A and B. And instead of an integer, I use a float. And I call this result 3. So A divided by B. What will be the output of result 3? So I call this I2. Now let's see if you guessed it right. This one is 0.0. Now you probably wonder, what if we have integers and we want to get a floating point value? It didn't help changing the data type of the result here to a float. The reason for this is that this arithmetic operation is independent of the result. It computes this operation here first and here the same. This is integer division. So it does 3 divided by 6. It's an integer, so it's 0. And then it simply does assignment 0 integer to a float. This is 0.0. So this is where we have to change something. On the side here, that's the variable declaration that stores the result. This doesn't do anything. We have to change the operation here. And one way to do this is, let's say we use X and Y this time. So we definitely need to have float to store the result, right? If we don't have float, we can only store whole numbers. So this has to be a float, so we were on the right track. But what we have to do as well is cast, and that means convert one of these variables to a floating point number. So if we have X divided by Y, one of them has to be converted to floating point. Let's take X, for example. We simply put float in parentheses in front of this variable and then perform the division. Now I take this I3. This one should output 4. And let's run this. Now here we get 0.5. The reason for this is that if one of the operands is a float, it will perform floating point division. If both of them are integer, it will always perform integer division. So if you have two integers and you want to get a floating point result, you have to perform floating point division, and that means you have to cast either x or y, doesn't matter which one, to a float before you divide. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.